Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to Season 22 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Tonight here for round number 7 of the season at the Watkins Glen International Raceway. Here for the first of 2 road courses on the schedule here for season number 22. Later on in September, we're going to be heading on over to Sonoma Raceway, but not quite making it over to wine country yet so far here this season. Instead, up in New York, in Watkins Glen, New York. Opened up back in 1957. It is a very iconic North American road course here, and it's one with a very storied history in the ASRC league as a whole. Only the 4th visit by the Oval Series, which, makes sense. The Oval Series mostly races oval, but the fact that this is the 4th visit by the Oval Series just goes to show how many times that we actually run this road course when it does come to having to pick one. We've had 3 unique winners in the 3 races we've had here in the Oval Series in the form of Nico Morelli, Daniel Ott, and Brian Sabelski. But 19 overall races, there's a lot of different drivers that deserve some honorable mentions here. Joe Marlin taking home wins here all the way back in 2019, along with C. Dubois. Jake Johansson, a driver that we have seen in the Oval Series, who is a multi-time winner here at this track in the various road racing series over the years in the ASRC League. Also, Carter, a quick look down at our point standings coming into tonight's event. Joshua Rudolph is our points leader over 85 of Mr. Brian Sabelski, 6-time league champion in that Makoni Setup Shop 85, with to his outside. Back in 3rd, that's Ted Wallace and Lamar Stevens, 2 drivers that have taken home wins so far here this season. Ted Wallace back at Daytona, Lamar Stevens last week back at Texas. Definitely 2 drivers that we should be keeping an eye on here. Then back in 5th is the Liquid Death entry of Mike Rossi, followed by Cole Matrick in the Mobile 1 entry back in 6th. Then 7th is going to be Mick Jacobs in the 101, followed by Bo Johansson, the Advanced Auto Parts number 112. That's going to be Ray Parson, Jason Williams rounding out the top 10, Danny Yates, and Amory Jackson for row 6. That'll be Doc Jones, Curtis Colwell, and then unfortunately Jason Gardner again not making the call to the grid here tonight due to some technical difficulties, but Mark Kluge will be rounding out the 15th position down at the tail end of the looks like everyone so far has been able to make it through without too much difficulty here between Lamar Stevens and Bo Johansson. Johansson going to lose 2 spots, and Bo Johansson going to lose 2 spots as Mike Rossi squeezes past there as well in that Liquid Death entry. He has a oh, looks like Colwell got into Kluge and broke the right front tire. Take one quick look back at that again, with Mark Kluge spinning coming out of, I believe, turn number 8. Pretty hard impact into the outside wall there, and not doing himself any favors. Big rear impact there as well. But it looks like we are still under the green flag here. So I guess for the time being, the trend of no caution flags will continue as Ted Wallace is able to get around that 85 of Brian Sabelski there. Big move coming out of that corner. Mark Kluge also looks like is being black flagged, possibly for unsafe pit entry. I'm not positive on that, but they are getting word that there is a black flag being served for Mark Kluge. And sure enough, it looks like Curtis Colwell has packed the car up and retired from tonight's event, just pulling away from the field with a 0.04 second lead over Wallace and Sabelski. So now, right now, as it stands, our top 4 drivers run have all taken home wins at some point so far here in season number 22. None of them have taken as a position where we've seen a lot of drivers end up potentially making mistakes. Sabelski is closing in on the back of that 143 machine here. Ted Wallace going way high. All of the drivers really, they're going way high coming out of that corner, which on the cup layout you are allowed to cut that corner the way these drivers are. You are actually not confined to that curb. Just as long as you are on the asphalt, basically, you are okay. But Sabelski's going to pull side by side here with Stevens and try and make the move going down into turn number 1. Sure enough, Stevens still neck and neck with him, almost outbreaks him. As you can see, Rudolph also going way wide coming through turn number 1 there. Turn 1 is the same sort of situation where you are allowed to cut that curb as long as you stay on the asphalt. You can go over that curb as much as you want. Single filing out again through the bus stop, but Sabelski's really trying to push here. He's been having a good battle here with Ted Wallace. Wallace also starting to catch up to Rudolph here. Rudolph had a full second lead for a little bit there, but it's fallen back down to about 0.4 of a second, give or take a little bit. We can take a look here at how these drivers are doing in terms of their sectors right now. Rudolph there, so Rudolph might be starting to burn the good off those tires a little bit here. We're only 7 laps into tonight's event out of the 41 lap scheduled distance. And sure enough, coming across the line, Sabelski's still having the advantage there over Rudolph. Lamar Stevens is closed up pretty considerably up to the back of Ted Wallace here. We might be seeing that 122 machine start to potentially vie for some positions here in these next couple of laps. Look at the lap times last time by: a 13.06 for Rudolph, a 12.79 for Sabelski, a 13.28 for Wallace, a 12.96 for Stevens. Back in the tail end of the field, there's another battle going on here between Doc Jones and Anne-Marie Jack. Better bit of momentum, but he quickly loses all going through the bus stop as Sabelski goes off track, ends up cutting the grass there a little bit. In a 41 lap race, I don't exactly think we're going to be seeing 6 caution flags to get him his 6 laps back through the lucky dog, but at least still turning laps out on the raceway is really see all that well going into compared to Watkins Glen. Watkins Glen, a lot of people call it the NASCAR oval of road courses. It kind of together with Lime Rock Park, because if we pull up the track map here, you can see almost the entire track is right-hand turns. Aside from 1 or 2 exceptions, you spend the entire length of the track basically turning in the same direction. Long flat straightaways followed by, for the most part, wide sweeping corners. So technically it's not all that difficult of a track to get the hang of and get the car brought around. Of course, with any amount of road course racing and racing in general, there's a lot of nuance to it. It's not exactly as easy as getting the car and driving circles, but I'd say of the road courses out there, the prominent road courses around the world, Watkins Glen is out there as one of the easier ones to get a decent hang of. Joshua Rudolph. So we'll have to keep an eye on things and see if he's able to maintain that lead. Ted Wallace and Lamar Stevens both all over the back. 18 machine of Rudolph here. Not quite close enough. Going down into turn number 1. And considering you can see that 45 of Mark Kluge heading down into the bus stop here, I'd imagine in the next couple of laps we're probably going to be seeing a little bit of lap traffic as we have Mark Kluge down on pit lane now in that 45 machine. I believe that we might have just seen another incident, yet Mark Kluge has taken the car down to the hauler and has retired for the evening. We'll take another look back here and see what happened to Kluge. And looks like just hits the curb wrong, and ooh, massive impact in the outside wall. That's probably the most substantial impact we've seen all season here. We're taking another look back, riding on board with that 45. And you definitely hear that car starting to get upset as it goes over the curbs, and sure enough, that's a blown motor on the spot. But we're still under the green flag. We are still racing. And it looks like Joshua Rudolph and Ted Wallace are still duking it out here. At least it seemed like they were. We head down to turn number 1. Wallace was able to get around Rudolph, but evidently he lost that position just as quickly as he took it. And now heading down into the bus stop once again. Might have some debris on the track from that the tail end of the field, and all these drivers are really starting to fall away from our front runners. Jason Williams up here in the 9th position has a 6-second gap in front of him and behind him. He is all by his lonesome right now. Mick Jacobs, honestly, in a similar situation. He's got a 6-second gap behind and a 5-second gap ahead, so he's kind of having just a quiet little race here. Really, the main battles are second on through about 6th here is where our main cluster of cars are right now. So it's good to see that the main competitive bunch are able to stay decently on top of each other all the way back to really about Cole Matrick back in 7th. There's kind of the tail end of this group. You can see Sabelski there starting to sail away from the rest of the field. Now up to 5 for Wallace. 13:89 for Rudolph. 13:05 for Stevens. So still the same case that Stevens was a little bit faster last time by than that 18 machine, but he just doesn't seem like he's really able to catch up all that well. Currently a 1-second gap between Stevens and Rudolph. Though it seems like the bus stop is a place where Stevens is closing in the distance fairly substantially. Goes it down from 1 second to half a second just like that through that single section of corners there. Just behind Bo Johansson, a part of this picture as well. We haven't really talked about that 112 machine, but he is still very much in the picture as well. He's been riding right on the heels of Lamar Stevens for... So, slowly but surely nearing our way towards the halfway point here. Side by side again, a little bit further back. Emery Jackson, Doc Jones. Jones down to the bottom. Trying to finally get a pass for position going here as they're side by side down the front straightaway. Jones just barely having the advantage, but he has the preferred line going down in turn number 1, and looks like he is going to fairly considerably outbreak Emery Jackson there. Jackson loses a ton of ground, over a second, almost a second and a half, just through that one corner to Doc Jones. So that's now going to bump Jackson towards being the final car still running on the circuit right now, back in the 13th position. Not a good points day for Doc Jones or Emery Jackson here tonight quite yet. Brian Zabelski still leading the field by a fairly healthy margin here. You can see how far back the rest of the field is from him. As looks like Mike Rossi might be trying to make a move on that 112 machine. He's trying to get involved here with Bo Johansson. Rossi, you know, we really haven't talked about all that much here tonight, but he's pretty quietly lurking here just outside the top 5 on the outside looking in, trying to see if he can't worm his way in there. Fortunately, Rossi not involved in any incidents so far here this evening. We'll have to keep an eye on him and see how that goes for him, because he's definitely proven himself to be one of the more aggressive drivers here in the field in season 22. Right now, running back in the 6th position, down 1 spot from where he qualified. Actually, qualified back in 5th. But Bo Johansson got around him. Bo Johansson right now is the most improved driver on the speedway right now. Started back in 8th, running up in the 5th position. The only driver that's improved by 3 spots. And Mark Kluge, actually, despite being retired from this event, is the only driver that's improved 2 spots. Everyone else has only had a change in position of 1 at best from where they qualified. So not a whole lot of passes for position so far here this evening, but that's kind of the nature of the beast on these road courses. Once we head on down to our pit stops here tonight, I'd imagine that will end up shaking things up a little bit here on strategy, but still got a little bit ways left to go before we get to that point. Brian Zabelski is really just completely clocking out with the race lead right now. It's now up to 1.2 seconds, and Ted Wallace has a 2-second gap for everyone else to play with here as well. That said, as Zabelski comes across the line to start off lap number 19, how about we... Oh, Josh Rudolph's making the call to come down pit lane, so he's pitting a little bit off sequence here. Nobody else making the call to come down. Very interesting. I had kind of figured we were going to see everybody come down all at the same time, but possibly taking a little bit of a gamble there in that 18 machine. We'll have to see if Brian Zabelski decides he wants to come down possibly next time by. I do not know. We'll just have to see here. And ultimately, coming down under the green flag means that he might be giving up that second lead that he has. It's actually gone down to 0.8 of a second now, as Ted Wallace has started to catch up to him just a little bit here. We will just end up having to see if Zabelski is going to make the decision to come down this time by or not. Rudolph has come off of pit lane, had a 11-second stop, so I think just fuel for that 18 machine with no tires. Zabelski is going to elect to stay out another lap here, but I'll tell you what, Ted Wallace is gaining on him. You can see Wallace green all the way around last time by in every sector. Let's see if it's still the case this time by, but the gap has gone back up to 1.3 seconds here, so Wallace has lost a lot of ground there in Sector 1. But it seems like the bus stop is kind of where these drivers are making the moves happen. That time by, not as substantial as we've seen, but for the most part, it seems like the bus stop is where Ted Wallace makes all of his ground back up. It's going through the bus stop there and coming out of that carousel. And sure enough, all the ground that Wallace lost through Sector 1, he's basically completely made back up through Sector 2. Looks like Zabelski is going to make the call to come down to pit lane this time by. And that will allow Ted Wallace to be scored as having led at least one lap here. So Ted Wallace, your new race leader, And side by side just behind for Mike Rossi and Bo Johansson going down into turn number 1. Rossi down on the inside. Not quite close enough to lunge in there and try to make the pass on Johansson, though. Though it's still nose to tail here coming through the S's. We might see Rossi try to dive down into there, into the bus stop. Dead Wallace now pulled up to a 5-second lead over everyone else. It definitely seems like the pace is starting to fall off, and I'd imagine a lot of these cars are going to be coming down to pit lane in the next lap or two. Now, looking at the lap times last time by, a lot of these drivers almost a full second slower than their typical laps we've seen around this speedway, so I think these drivers are starting to get worried about fuel here. I mean, I could be completely mistaken, I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. But no, everyone stays out for another lap. I guess I'm just making stuff up here at this point. I'm kind of surprised everyone decided to stay out. The lap times are definitely hurting here a little bit. Brian Sabelski and Joshua Rudolph back out on the track here, running back in 10th and 12th respectively. Sabelski also had a short 11-second stop, so I would imagine it's generally just fuel all the way around for these drivers. Sabelski pulling up side by side here with Danny Yates going through the S's, though. That's going to move him up to the 9th position as he works to claw some of these spots back here. Not going to be close enough to make any moves going down into the bus stop, but back up inside the top 10. And everyone else in the field still does have to come down pit lane here at some point. So Sabelski should be feeling pretty confident right now. The closest battle on the speedway is still the battle between Lamar Stevens and Bo Johansson, about 0.4 of a second apart from each other. Going down here into turn number 1, bit of a variance in the lines as now Mike Rossi pulls up alongside with the 112 machine. Almost squeezes him off the track here, but that is going to allow Rossi to get up to the 3rd position, at least for the time being, in that liquid death entry. Just squeezes Johansson out of the way coming out of turn number 1, and now trying to think about going to the outside through the bus stop, but he's not going to be close enough to make it too wide through there, but he is closing in on Lamar Stevens by a pretty comfortable amount here. Johansson starting to fall back here just a little bit, now down to about 0.7 of a second behind Rossi. Rossi's just taking wider, more aggressive lines pretty much all the way around the circuit here. I don't think he's going to have the speed to pull alongside Stevens coming down the front straightaway here, particularly since Stevens goes to the inside to break the draft. Close, but not quite enough to be able to make it happen here. Further back, Brian Sabelski battling with some more folks, now battling it out with Ray Parson in that Miller Tech entry. Right on the bumper there, coming out of the final corner and heading down the front straightaway. Sabelski should be able to pull up alongside with this driver, I believe, before we make it down in turn number 1. Not quite able to, but going to get a better run out the corner and pull up side by side, heading up towards the S's here. And no, Parson going to close the door on him, swing down in front of the 85 machine and block that run. So Sabelski is just going to ride his bumper and push him all the way through turns 2 and 3. Now as we head down to the bus stop, Sabelski on the outside, not quite the place you want to be to try and make a pass here. It looks like he's just going to be a patient man and try and wait for a better opportunity, maybe through the carousel. Going to make a bit of contact there, give him a bit of a nudge. That's going to run the 104 wide, but still not quite able to get around him. That 104 machine is really playing the defensive game here, trying to hold back Sabelski, but we're still in the same situation where a lot of these drivers have to come down pit lane still, so I'd imagine trying to block Sabelski really isn't doing all that much in their favor. Sabelski still not able to get around him here, now trying to do it again, run him up wide through turn number 1, and still not quite. Well, sure enough, he is going to get enough momentum going up through the S's this time by. He saw the same sort of defensive line being taken, and he said, not this time. I know what you have planned, and I'm going to work around it, and that's exactly what he did. So that moves Sabelski up to the 8th spot here with 16 laps left to go, and still nobody has come down pit lane except for Brian Sabelski and Joshua Rudolph. Nobody else has pitted. I don't know if the rest of the field is holding out hope for a caution or what exactly the plan is here for their strategies, but I don't know. It just seems like everyone else is running the game to just run their tanks completely dry before they come down pit lane, compared to Sabelski and Rudolph waiting to pit right around just the halfway point. Side by side here for Danny Yates and Ray Parsons heading down into turn number 1. Yates down on the bottom, Parsons up on the outside. Parsons going to lose another position here. Joshua Rudolph just behind, going very wide down through the corner. Trying to use the runoff on the track to have more momentum to carry through the S's here. And he is catching up to Doc Jones here for the 11th spot. Trying to figure out a way around him before we head on down into the bus stop, and we're going to pull it up side by side, make a bit of contact there. Nudge Doc Jones out of the way, but that's going to cause him to hop the curb. Hangs on to it, though. I'll move him up to the 11th position here. Down 9 spots from where he qualified in that 18 machine, but again, it still comes back to the whole situation of the entire rest of the field needing to come down pit lane at some point still. Being very stubborn and hesitant about it, but ultimately that's just the fact of the matter is they do need to come back down here at some point. Danny Yates, slow going through the final corner there. Going to lose the position to Ray Parson by a pretty considerable margin here. Now a full second of difference. Further up towards the front, the battle is still going on between Mike Rossi, Cole Matrick, and Bo Johansson here for the 3rd position. We can pull up their times and see how well they're doing here. On the left, their sector times. On the right, the gaps between each of them. For the time being, it looks like Matrick still is the fastest of the bunch, as for some reason we're looking at the wrong battle here. I was trying to figure out why the gaps looked so weird in the sector time. That's because we were looking at the wrong drivers there. But Matrick's going to try and pull the inside on Rossi, not quite able to do it. But still neck and neck for these 3 drivers, as we're now down to 13 laps left to go, and they still haven't pitted. I'm really wondering just what the strategy call is for the rest of these drivers. Oh, side by side there, loose for Matrick through the entry to the bus stop there. Hangs on to it. That's going to cost him a little bit of ground over Johansson there. Side by side as Johansson goes down to the inside, trying to get around that 112 machine. He's going to have the advantage going into this next corner. Sure enough, Johansson back to 5th, though. Not quite able to complete the pass. And the clock keeps ticking down. We're now down to 12 laps left to go, and nobody's come down pit lane. They're still just staying out. But both these drivers have lost a lot of ground battling with each other like that to Rossi now. Rossi has pulled it away to a 1.3 second gap over these other drivers, and that might be all she wrote here for the time being. But a little bit further back, Ryan Sabelski is making a big move to the inside of that WeatherTech car, Jason Williams. Side by side going down turn number 1, but as usual, Sabelski has the more advantageous line. Is nearly contact there between the two of them. That 188 cut down real sharp. He's going to cede the position, and that's going to move Brian Sabelski up to 7th here. A little bit further back, Joshua Rudolph's made up some ground. He's now up in 10th as Danny Yates and Doc Jones battling it out just behind him here. This is for 11th between the two of them. Still the closest battle on Speedway between these two drivers as they're side by side going through the bus stop, negotiating it a little bit more calmly than we've seen some of the other drivers take the two of it, but it's going to be Danny Yates leading the way coming out there. Up at the front, though, Cole Matrick, Bo Johansson battling it out still. The closest battle on the Speedway in the battle for 4th. Mike Rossi has sailed away. He's almost 2.5 seconds in front of these two drivers, but these two still duking it out with each other. And we're starting to close our way towards being 10 laps left to go here. And I'm getting increasingly concerned about the fuel strategy here. What are the rest of these drivers doing in terms of making their stops? Because, I mean, they're kind of running out of time to make their stops and get back out on the track and get their spots back. I mean, Sabelski already has worked his way up to 7th now, just on raw pace, and he is working on closing up to the 101 machine of Mick Jacobs. Which surely, if Sabelski and Rudolph had to pit halfway through this race, the rest of the field isn't going to be able to make it on fuel. Surely, right? I mean, it would take all of them doing some stupendous fuel saving to make that work. And I don't see that being the case. So we'll have to see. The big double high five is up in the air from Barney the Flagman. So one way or another, we are within the final 10 laps left to go here into tonight's race. Still currently looking down at Brian Sabelski running back in 7th. Working his way, closing up to the 101 of Mick Jacobs in that Kubota entry. Got it down to about 1.5 seconds. You can see just up the road from him. He's closing up pretty decently. Last time by Sabelski, a 111.3, Jacobs a 112.5. But our race leaders make the call to come down pit lane. Ted Wallace down on pit lane. Lamar Stevens coming down here as well. Mike Rossi elects to stay out. Same with Matrick and Johansson also electing to stay out here. How about Mick Jacobs? Of course, we're now talking way far back from the rest of the field, and Jacobs electing to stay out here as well. So just Wallace and Stevens electing to come down pit lane here. And it looks like they had new tires put on Ted Wallace's machine. I don't think we saw any on Stevens. I might be mistaken there. But drivers coming back out onto the raceway in traffic here. Wallace and Stevens come back onto the track in 6th and 7th respectively, as now Sabelski's putting on the pressure on Mick Jacobs. Right all over the back of that 101 machine as we head on down here into the bus stop once again. Jacobs still holding on to the position. Sabelski not wanting to make anything too aggressive here and potentially get himself taken out. At this point, I think Sabelski's trying to just play the patient game and wait for the remainder of these drivers to come on down pit lane. And sure enough, we have more takers. Mike Rossi, Cole Matrick, Bo Johansson all making the call to come down pit lane here. So that cycles Sabelski back around to being your race leader here. It looks like Mick Jacobs going to be coming down as well. Ted Wallace, Lamar Stevens both have already done their stops. So now the big question is, will the two of them be able to catch up to Sabelski or not? Is this ultimately, unless there's a caution flag, this is your battle for your race lead right now. That is how it's going to be playing out. It's going to be coming down to these three drivers. There is some fairly considerable gaps here between the two of them right now. It's about 2.5 seconds from Sabelski to Wallace, and then 2.5 seconds from Wallace to Stevens. Sector 1 not looking great for either of them compared to Sabelski. Looks like we have the rest of the field making the call come down to pit lane. Ray Parsons down, Danny Yates, Henry Jackson, Doc Jones all down on pit lane here. And it does look like Sabelski is pulling away from the field here. He's gotten up to a 2.7 second gap over Ted Wallace. Of course, Sabelski pit all the way back on lap number 21. So, if there were tires taken that I missed, that is going to be a about 10 lap tire deficit. I don't think anyone took tires. I'm pretty sure we're all still running on the same set. If I saw my pit stops correctly, which I could be wrong here, but I believe that they are all on their initial set of tires. Last time by a 1:11.50 for Brian Sabelski. Everyone else is running in the 1:12 or 1:13 range here, so Sabelski really putting on a heater. It's not looking very well like anybody's going to be catching up to him anytime soon here. 7 laps left to go in tonight's event, though. And as the sectors start to update, you can see here, yeah, Wallace and Stevens are still considerably losing ground to that 85 machine. So I think Sabelski, just now that he has the open racetrack to play with, he is pushing it as hard as he can. Just really building that gap up as much as possible. Now up to a 5-second lead over the rest of the field in that 85 machine. And really, he doesn't have to worry about lap traffic coming up on him at all either. He has a fairly considerable gap between himself and Emery Jackson, Doc Jones, which are battling for the 11th position right now. This is the closest battle on the track here for the time being in regards of battling for position between Yates and Jones. Emery Jackson about 1.2 seconds back here from this battle. And still, this is the battle for the 11th position, so not quite all that substantial in the grand scheme of things, but it still is a matter of a couple of points, and you never know, maybe at the end of this season, a matter of a couple of points might be the difference between walking home with a championship or walking home without one. Still a lot of unknowns up in the air here this season. Of course, this is round number 7 here on the calendar. Still have a pretty long season left to go here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more races after this left to go in the regular season, and then a 4-race chase for the championship. So still left to go after tonight. We have Watkins, Glen's where we're at right now, but next week hang on over to Dover Motor Speedway, then Charlotte, then Nashville Super Speedway to round out the end of August. Then we kick off September with Michigan, then Sonoma Raceway, that second road course we were talking about, then North Wilkesboro at the end of September, followed by New Hampshire to kick off the very beginning of October. And then October, we kick off the chase for the championship at Kansas, followed by Phoenix Raceway, then Talladega Superspeedway and Homestead, Miami to finally crown our champion on November 9th. So still a long way left to go here this season. We still have all the way towards the beginning of November before we bring an end to season number 22. One of the first seasons that hasn't followed the traditional 12-week format. All throughout the ASRC Oval Series, we have followed the same 12-week format. Oh, hang on to it there. Big slide for Doc Jones. But for pretty much the entire duration of the ASRC Oval Series, we have followed the same 12-week schedule that iRacing follows. Give or take a couple of seasons where we only ran 11 races to compensate for a holiday or something of that nature. But this is the first time where we've had a 18 race long season instead of 12. It's also the first time that we had more than a single week of break in between our seasons. We took, I believe, about a month and a half off in between season 21 and season 22. Brian Zabelski just set a new fastest lap of the race up the front with 3 laps left to go with a 1:11.33. And we can pull up everyone's best lap time here up on the timing tower, and you can see just how substantial the difference is compared to everyone else. No one else except Joshua Rudolph has even set foot in the 1:11 range. Rudolph had a 1:11.69. I believe before the pit cycle began. Right now, Sabelski is by far the fastest car on the track, but everyone is very considerably spread out from each other in terms of position, except for this battle here between Doc Jones and Danny Yates. So this is where we're going to focus on through the remainder of the race, barring anything particularly exciting happening otherwise around the field. The next closest battle for position is a 1.5 seconds apart with Cole Matrick and Bo Johansson. Everyone else is about 3 seconds all the way up to 8 to 12 seconds apart from each other. Still side by side here for Doc Jones and Danny Yates. These two drivers are still duking it out with each other, and I'll tell you what, I said Sabelski wasn't going to run into lap traffic here, but evidently I was wrong, because there's Brian Sabelski. He's got Emery Jackson, Emery Jackson, Doc Jones, Danny Yates, all right in front of him here. Not that he has to really worry about it slowing him down enough for Ted Wallace or Lamar Stevens to catch up, because both of them are over 10 seconds behind our race leader right now. All he has to do really is just not make a mistake. And we've seen that Sabelski is a driver that fairly consistently does not make mistakes. And of course, to boot here, we are only about a quarter of a lap left to go before the white flag goes up in the air, and then there's no risk of cautions, no risk of overtime, and Sabelski can pretty smoothly sail on to the end of this race as he gives a bit of a nudge to the back of the 124 machine there. Kind of tell them, hey, I'm behind you, and white flag's out. Get out of my way. Sure enough, one more lap left to go for Brian Sabelski to be taking home the race win here. Call it about 2.5 miles for the driver of the 85 machine as he looks to take home win number 3 in season 22. Like I said, coming into tonight's event, Brian Sabelski is the road course ringer here of the ASRC Oval Series, and still very much holding up to that title, as just behind there is a battle for position between Emery Jackson and Doc Jones going down into the bus stop side by side. It looks like Doc Jones will have the advantage coming out of it here, and he's going to pull away to a half-second gap just like that. Sabelski trying to get around that lapped car of Danny Yates here, but Yates defending maybe a little bit harder than he needs to be. Sabelski is going to send it on in deep into the corner there to get around him, though, and able to make the pass. And coming out of the final corner for the final time, the checkered flag goes up into the air. And it's going to be Brian Sabelski taking home Race win number 3 for season 22 of the ASRC Oval Series. Ted Wallace going to bring it home back in second. Lamar Stevens back in third. Both nearly 10 seconds back from our race winner. Spelsky going to pull it on down into the runoff area here in turn number 1. Let the rest of the field go by. We might end up seeing a Polish victory lap out of this driver, even at the 2.5 mile long road course. Of course, he traditionally does it on the ovals, but we might just see it out of him here on the road course as well. Right now, just waiting for the rest of the field to pull it on down pit lane, make sure he's not at risk of hitting anybody when he starts doing his celebrations, like that Kubota entry right there of Mick Jacobs, who's just running around out on the runoff with him. Same with that WeatherTech entry of Jason Williams. That means we should be seeing Ray Parson come by here in just a moment as well. Hey, look, there's Ray Parson. Sure enough, I was right. And not quite contact. But a lot of these people really just keep rudely interrupting Sabelski's burnout here. He's trying to celebrate, and all these cars finishing up their race aren't really giving him the opportunity to do so. And there we go. Now we get our burnout out of the driver, that 85 machine, Mr. Brian Sabelski. Gonna get it done here at Watkins Glen International. First of 2 road courses on the season here for season 22. I'd imagine we're probably going to be seeing Sabelski in this same position here in a couple weeks at Sonoma Raceway. That said, Bears fans, don't go anywhere. We're going to be back here in just a moment with some words. Normally, I'd say with your top 3 finishers, but Brian Sabelski is the only one in the top 3 that's actually going to be able to talk to us here. So you're going to be talking to your top 1 finisher here tonight, here in a couple of moments. Don't go anywhere. We will be back in just a moment with some words with Mr. Brian Sabelski. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Watkins Glen International. Here with Mr. Brian Sabelski, taking home checkered flag number 3 here tonight. He really was kind of the favorite to win coming into tonight's event, and he has most certainly lived up to that expectation. So, Brian, how are you feeling here this evening?
Pretty good. Pretty good. That was fun. I've kind of grown to like this track. Officials, not so much. Officials, it's kind of a crapshoot, but yeah, it's other leagues I run pretty well here for some reason. So I guess I guess here's more of the same.
Yeah, and it's not your first time winning here with ASRC as well. 19 races here at this track total with ASRC since it was founded, but you did get a win back in 2019 in the Road Series and a win back in 2025 in the Oval Series. So this will be win number 3 for you here at this track. Um, how are you feeling about it in regards to your other road courses we have on the calendar here this season?
Uh, Feeling good. I like this. Josh is really fast, so we'll have to be wary of him. He's pretty quick, so I'm not entirely surprised that he was able to keep up for quite a while. Um, yeah, looking forward to it. Going forward.
Yeah, did you have any sort of concerns coming into tonight's event, or were you pretty confident that you would be taking home the checkered flag tonight?
You never know, but yeah, I felt pretty confident that I could run a very competitive race and finish, you know, finish where I did, close to where I did, if not first, then maybe second.
Well, definitely a very solid run for you here tonight. You took home the checkered flag with a 7.5 second lead over anybody else. So I'd say you put on a pretty solid performance here tonight. We did have some pretty big incidents in the early goings of this race. We didn't have any caution flags come out for it, but if we did, do you think that would have been affecting your strategy or your running it all here tonight?
Uh, no, probably not. I think you get a caution, you come in, take fuel and tires, and you just gut it out to the end.
Fair enough. Well, one way or another, it seems like a pretty straightforward race for you here tonight. So, win number 3 to your name. Of course, we haven't gotten the drop weeks figured out yet, but once they're all calculated in there, you should be pretty up towards the front of the point standing. So, how are you feeling about your odds with this championship as a whole?
Uh, Feeling pretty good. I think we can make a run here. As long as we're able to be here and be consistent, we shouldn't be too much of a problem. I think to get up toward the front of the pack.
Well, if you manage to pull it off, I'll tell you what, championship title number 7 would certainly be quite the record to have to your name. But at least in the short term, next week we're heading on over to Dover for another 150-mile race. How are you feeling about your odds over there next week?
Pretty good. I think tire wear is going to be really tough there. It's Dover. It's always a tire wear track. It always comes down to how much you can save and how much you don't put on that right front and burn off. Even in the Pro Series, it's been an issue for them in this car. So it's gonna be it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot to figure out how to tire save efficiently and just to you know get to the end, get to your stop, and get to the end and get there in one piece without blowing a tire out and crashing into the wall.
Well, that sounds pretty good to me. Anytime I hear drivers have any sorts of concerns about the upcoming track, that generally tells me it's going to be a pretty good race. So I think
It
that's going
should
to
be.
be a fun one to watch.
Yeah.
But for now, you've got both win number 3 at this track in ASRC, but also win number 3 for season number 22 to your name. So I won't be keeping you here all night. You've got a celebration to go to. The microphone's all yours, Mr. Spelski. Who do you want to thank for making it happen?
Uh, so, of course, thank you, Aiden, for broadcasting. Thank ASRC and Jason and everyone for putting this on. Uh, couldn't do it without you all. Of course, McConey set up shop, official set up shop at NASCAR. Uh, making the number 85 lightning quick tonight. Um, Denver Racing Social, kind of on a break right now, but we will be going back into to the F1 watch parties as we kick back off in like 2 weeks. I think is the next race, so that'll be fun. It'll be fun, and also it's a good place to go if you're in the front range looking for a watch party or just looking for a good place to get in and get some seat time on the fancy sim. Dragon Rose Coffee, love their coffee. They are wonderful folks, and I am proud to be affiliated with them. So Yeah, I really gotta get that Dragon Roast paint scheme on on the car here soon. SM Racing products, of course, wonderful button box they put together that I get to use every day, and it's amazing. And there is someone else. Oh, folks at Sim Gaming Expo, which is going to be September 16th, 18th, in summer 18th to 20th. 16th, 18th was last year. 18th September 18th to 20th, Schaumburg, Illinois. A lot of big brands are going to be there. Fanatec's already announced they're going to be there. SimLab, uh, Stingfeld. No, a lot of the big names are going to be there. They just announced that Horizon Hobby is showing up with some of their RC cars, which is awesome. And it's not just sim racing; it's sim gaming as a whole. So if you're into flight sims, they'll have people there who are going to be showing off flight sim stuff. If you're into farming simulator, there'll be farming simulator folks who are going to be showing up there. So really looking forward to being able to go back to the Midwest for the first time. I haven't been back I haven't been to Chicago in almost a decade. It'll be nice. Take the missus with me, and she's never been, so we'll get to do some cool stuff. I'll get to kind of remember how much I hate Chicago traffic. Um, I do, but it'll be fun. It'll be a good time, and hope to see you there. Tickets are still on sale right now, so don't wait before in case it sells out.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on another win to your name, and we look forward to seeing you next week over at Dover.
Absolutely. See you next week.
And of course, this would be the part where we go to our runner-up drivers here tonight, but both of them were two of the AI drivers here in this field, so I'm not actually going to be able to talk to them at all. So it's just going to be Brian Sabelski that we're getting our words from here this evening. But of course, Sabelski, Lamar Stevens, Mike Rossi, those weren't the only three drivers here in our race here tonight. So how about we take a look down at our race results as they stand unofficially. Brian Zabelski going to be taking home win number 3 of the season in dominant fashion with a 7.2 second lead. That's going to be Ted Wallace back in second, followed by Lamar Stevens rounding out your podium. Mike Rossi back in fourth with Cole Matrick rounding out your top 5. Then back in sixth is going to be Bo Johansson, followed by Joshua Rudolph in seventh. And that'll be Mick Jacobs back in eighth, followed by Jason Williams in ninth, and Ray Parson rounding out the top 10. 11th going to go back to Danny Yates, followed by Doc Jones in 12th, with Amory Jackson back in 13th. Mark Kluge, unfortunately, having another rough race. 2 races in a row that have not gone that 45's way, but he's going to be bringing it home back in 15th, or 14th, with Curtis Colwell rounding out the tail end of the field back in 15th, and then Jason Gardner, again, unfortunately, not able to make the call to the green flag. I mean, he's having some technical difficulties with his sim racing setup here. So hopefully his crew will have the fix he needs put in there here for next week so we can see that 93 machine running out on the racetrack again. That said, that's just about all we've got here tonight from Watkins Glen. It's going to be a good 100 miles in the books since we dropped the green flag earlier this evening. Next week, heading on over to Dover Motor Speedway for 150 laps. That should be a fun one. We heard Sabelski talking about it being a difficult track, going to be really bad on tire wear. And anytime the drivers are not having a good time out on the track, well, race fans, that generally means we're having a good time up in the booth, because that means we get to see them work their tails off. So definitely be sure to turn into next week. I think it's going to be a fun one. And of course, if you're looking to join the league, we're always open and looking for new drivers. Only requirement is to be a clean and respectful racer. That said, thank you all for tuning in here tonight. We'll see you all next week at Dover. And otherwise, have a good evening, race fans.